Hello, everybody. It's good to be back. It's good to be back in Berlin, and it's good to be back here at DappCon. I wanted to talk to you today about stablecoins in general, but more specifically, I wanted to talk to you about on-chain fiat. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Gísli, the CTO and co-founder of Monerium. To kick things off, I would like to gauge the audience by a show of hands. Who here uses stablecoins? Okay, very good. A lot of you in the room. Is there anybody here that gets their salaries paid in a stablecoin? Well, I see a couple of hands here raised. So I think we've seen the emergence of stablecoins and their utility all around DeFi. They were instrumental in the protocols like Morpho, lending, payments, exchange, all of this good stuff. But if we really go back in time and ask ourselves, when did the stablecoins emerge? This was in a time long time ago, and this was essentially a solution to the problem of cryptocurrency exchanges not being able to open up bank accounts. So it really shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody that stablecoins are mostly denominated in USDs. And the USD is kind of the king when it comes to cryptocurrency speculation and everything that followed. Now, to maybe drive that point home, I'm going to show you the evolution of the stablecoin market for the past couple of years, broken down by currency, and this is our favorite metric, of course, the TVL. So, as you can see here, the euro is the red one, right? And this is kind of interesting to see, right? Does this mean that there is no real demand for non-USD stablecoins? Does this mean that the euro doesn't belong on chain? What do you think? I mean, I think it's a legit question, right? So in Europe, of course, okay, so you get your salaries paid in DAI or USDC, and then you want to use it for something from day to day. This usually means that you then have to move your tokens to an exchange and place them in an order book for a euro. This is where you incur fees. There's a lot of complexity there. And then you have to maintain an off-chain bank account, because you aren't going to be able to send your euros from Kraken directly to your landlord to pay for rent, right? So you'll have to have an intermediary bank account. And oftentimes, the bank will kind of reject the payment because it's originating from crypto. It's easier for the bank to say just, no, we don't understand this, so you can't use this. And recently, I don't know how many people know this, but at the end of next month, MiCA is entering into force. And this is going to change a number of things. What exactly? I don't know. But whether you love or hate MiCA, it essentially lays out a framework, a set of rules that stablecoin issuers need to adhere to. So Monerium, we are the issuer of URI, and that is a stablecoin denominated in a euro. And because the stablecoin landscape is such a big topic, we like to talk about on-chain fiat. And you may ask, what the heck is an on-chain fiat? So this is a definition that defines what an on-chain fiat is. And when we decided to put the euro on chain, these were some of the fundamental properties that we thought were so important. It needed to be real money. It couldn't be a proxy for something else. It just had to be the euro. It also needed to kind of adhere to the crypto ethos, so it needed to be your wallet, not some Monerium wallet, exclusive wallet, and it needed to be your money, just the way we like it. Third thing it needed to be DeFi native. This couldn't be another bank coin, which wasn't usable, wasn't an ERC20, didn't have the properties. So it needs to be able to talk natively to the protocols that have been innovated on in DeFi. And then as a fourth point, all the fuzzy logic that I was talking about earlier about going through the exchanges, it never made any sense to us to go to an exchange to buy currency. So interestingly, because we are regulated and we are future compatible with MiCA, we can talk to TradFi as peers. Sure, we'll have to put on a suit, but still we can. So probably the biggest, one of the bigger innovation that we have done in the last years is the Web3 IBAN. And I'm not sure how many of you are actually familiar with it, but just to give it in layman terms, so you have your blockchain account, and you have the address, the wallet address, to talk and transact with smart contracts and peers on chain. But what we give you, or your wallet, essentially, is the superpower of being able to talk with another kind of identifier, the IBAN. So you get a personalized IBAN in your name, and now you can speak and transact to your friends in TradFi. You can receive money from anyone in the SEPA system, and you can send money to anyone in the SEPA system. It's truly magical if you haven't experienced it. So some people ask us, like, hey, how are you guys doing? And at least by one metric, we're kind of killing it, right? So last month, we surpassed the 1.1 billion mark. This is not TVL, but transactional volume, right? The TVL is still pretty minimal at 15 million, but I think this graph alone proves that the euro belongs on chain, and it's not going. But it may be the case that it's going to be used differently than a USD counterpart. So we are, of course, here. We've all heard about Gnosis Pay. We're very proud to be powering the card. Not all of you know that when you put your money, you top up your card, it's a URI, and because we're regulated, we can settle with the Visa network. I think this is the first time, to my knowledge at least, where you have a self-custodial wallet that is connected to a card that allows you to spend it at 130 million merchants anywhere in the world. This is the power of the infrastructure that we've built. So it's not just card payments that the URI is being used for. Here's a great example. When I was on stage here last year, I talked about URAMP. Back then, this was a proof of concept. This year, we have it in production, but not we. This is a third-party UI that connects some of the components in a very interesting way. So for those of you who haven't used it, what you do is you connect your wallet to it, and then number two, you connect your Monerium account. And this essentially gives you a bridge from DeFi to the banking system. So back to the example for the users that get their salaries paid in crypto or stablecoins. What you can essentially do is you can go from any chain. So let's assume that you get paid in DAI on Optimism. You type in the number, you get a quote, and then you go directly into just typing in the bank account details of the recipient. This could be your landlord, and whenever you hit the send, you're going to sign it with your wallet, and then literally few minutes later, the landlord will have the exact amount in their bank account, and what they'll see is your name. It's not going to be Monerium or anybody else. So I really like this use case here. But in order for this to work, like in order for all of this to come together, there needs to be some liquidity. And what we are seeing is that the exchange liquidity pairs are being aggregated mostly on Gnosis chain. And right now, there's about 7 million euros worth of assets in those pools. So users are starting to transact here much, much more. This is kind of unlocking that use case, both for Gnosis Pay and for UWrap and others. And of course, you can use some aggregators like CowSwap, 1inch, even UWrap to figure out the best routes for you. But this is happening. Lending and borrowing. Aave recently deployed their smart contracts on Gnosis chain, and something interesting started to happen there. We see, of course, the common tokens there, but you can see the URI there, right? And this is the first time, to my knowledge, a euro enters into Aave. And if we start to look at the data and analyze what users are doing, essentially they are going from DAI, staking it to SDAI, getting roughly 12% on their DAI. And then when they're ready to spend it, they actually borrow the URI. There's now 2 million euros worth of liquidity in Aave on Gnosis chain. So they borrow it just at the time of spending, and in the word of one of our friends, they are essentially getting paid to use URI for payments. So it's interesting to see some of the yield strategies, and I think this will be a future theme for the euro on chain as well. So here are some of the observations that we've seen. As I was going through, the euro on chain definitely has a spot there, but it's going to serve a different role from crypto speculation. And so we should maybe not think about the TVL there in the same way, but rather how much is it being used? And I think the volume there is an indicator there. On-chain fiat, the way I kind of like to think about it, seems to be an interesting way, because it unlocks many of the use cases. You can go back and forth, and this really has the power or potential to become the daily driver of those of you in here that are, living on chain, getting your salaries paid in crypto, and so on and so forth. And maybe the third point is that Mika is entering into force. And it's going to be interesting what that essentially means. We're already seeing some news being circulated in the media about Tether specifically being delisted from the exchanges. But this, in theory, should apply to Circle's USDC as well, because they are not compliant with the regulations. So what is that going to mean? Is that going to mean that companies who are paying in dollars today will start to use euros on chain? I don't know. Let's see. Another theme that we're seeing also is that real-world assets denominated in euros are coming on chain. I know Christoph Jetzt was here earlier talking about his tokenized platform, which is essentially a crowd investment platform where the cracked case of, I at least like to think about it like legal ICOs, where you can invest. We, of course, have seen the BC3M, which are the tokenized government bills, and we see some of the pools appearing in Morpho. And another theme that we're seeing is that many of those projects are finding home on Gnosis. It seems to be becoming sort of the home of the European DeFi. And it shouldn't really come as a surprise. I mean, it kind of makes sense. When you have those different projects, there's a synergy between them there. So lastly, I would say that the infrastructure is maturing, and it's probably a good time to start to put more focus on the application, the user application themselves. And I am really happy to see some of the wallets that are being announced here, the Matri wallet, the Seal, who are essentially taking all of this, all of those pieces are out there, and instead of having the user wallet connect to random websites, change the chains and everything, they're kind of abstracting all that away, allowing the user to use passkeys instead of seed phrases. I mean, I am the naive optimist. I always think mainstream is around the corner, but it really feels like things are coming together now. So maybe not all of you know that we are optimizing for onboarding users through partners like Gnosis Pay. So behind the scenes, every card holder becomes a Monerium customer. All the investors of Tokenized become Monerium customers. But if you're out there and want to have a more direct relationship with Monerium, or if you're a builder out there building cool stuff and want to have access to our infrastructure, I have some invite codes to share with you. So if you're interested, please find me afterwards. I'll be around, and I'll hand them out. So thank you.
OK, so that brings us to questions. So do we have any questions from the audience? Oh, yeah, there's one.
Hey, thank you for the presentation, very insightful. We've seen in the US that maybe recently there might be a shift from policymakers into how they see crypto. Maybe there is an opportunity, they see it as an opportunity for the dollars to acquire even more dominance in the on-chain world and online world. Do you think there's something similar as you're closer to maybe to the European regulators can happen also in Europe? Like, is there a chance for Europe to start being more proactive or more favorable or even optimistic about the on-chain world?
So I actually think Europe is way far ahead, to be honest. Not everybody loves Mika, but it gives you a clear set of rules. At least I know I'm not going to jail, right? We've seen the CEO of Circle kind of ask the US Congress to regulate them because there's just uncertainty around everything there. So I sometimes think about, remember the days of mobile phones when you had competing standards? GSM was the European standard, and there was another standard in the US. And if you wanted to call between the two continents, you couldn't. The GSM standard became an export product for the rest of the world, and now we can all talk together. And I think something like Mika, something like e-money could become that. So in Europe, there's legal clarity. We can issue the euro. We are already issuing the pound as well to support Gnosis Pay. But we can issue any currency out of Europe, including the US dollar.
OK, we have another question there.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Did Monerium come up with the configuration or the title like e-money, or is that something that came from regulators, or where does that come from?
So the crazy thing, this has been lying in plain sight for over 24 years. E-money is the equivalent to digital cash in Europe. It's a license that can be passported. It's been used by the major fintech players. You probably used Revolut or PayPal or Klarna. They've all been EMIs at one stage. And when we started out like creating on-chain fiat, we researched into different jurisdictions to figure out what is the best way to represent fiat on-chain. And the e-money license, which had already existed for 20-something years then, was there. And this has now been kind of enshrined or confirmed into MiCA that this is the way, if you want to issue stablecoins in Europe, that is the way.
Okay, and I think we have the last question here.
Regarding transaction fees and Visa, I think it was like a great strategic decision to use Visa as like a middleman to the TradFi payment rails. But do they charge a transaction fee? Is it like 0.8% or something? And like, what are your strategic plans for the next years? Is there actually a way for an e-money licensed institute to access this? What is it, SWIFT or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah. So that's a great question. So I'd have to defer the Visa part to Gnosis Pay, because they're essentially handling that part. We are the underlying settlement layer, right? So in the traditional world, there are like two processes that take place. One of them is the authorization, and the second is the settlement. So all euros being settled through Monerium, whether it's the cardholders or any other, are for free. Like you can move money across the boundaries for free. So we are investigating other payment rails, faster payments in the UK. So yes, we definitely, as an EMI, have the option of connecting directly into those payment rails, right? So I think that's one of the upsides of having a regulated stablecoin. And also on that front, because Marcus earlier today was talking about separating the bankers from banking. What it means for me is that we, as the issuer of the stablecoin, we take care of the rules and regulations, and the dApp builders on top, the Matchy wallets, they don't need to care about it. I know a product person from PayPal who had to liaise with over 500 persons across the organization to push out the release because they were holding customer funds. Now you have those teams building on top of stablecoins, including the URE, and they can push out changes much, much faster without liaising with 500 persons. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I'm afraid we don't have any more time for questions, so you guys can take it offline. But yeah, that was Gísli Kristjánsson from Monerium.